work to research and learn best practices from others, and really think about the ways that we can engage your employees meaningfully and in fun ways this campaign season. But we really also just want to have a great dialogue with all of you and kind of hear what you're seeing in your own workplaces, what you're learning, and some of the plans or challenges that you're expecting for the fall. So with that, we've got a good agenda in front of us today. We are looking at just a quick welcome and introductions, a little bit of an overview of what we think a virtual campaign could look like this year. And then we'll run through a few of the resources that our team has put together so far around virtual volunteerism, some fun ways to do virtual special events, and then really want to leave a lot of time for discussion. We'll break out into little breakout rooms within the Zoom chat so that we can have some small group discussion. I think we'll have around 30 some folks on the call today, so I want to make sure that you have time to share ideas with people who maybe are at different companies, and kind of chat through your plans, learn from each other as well. And then we'll come back together real quick, maybe hear some of those highlights and close out. So with that said, we have some good team members on the call today. We couldn't fit them all in one slide, so this is our corporate relations team as well as our volunteer team. These are the folks that will work with you on your giving campaigns, on your corporate volunteerism, whether that be socially distanced or virtual. And we've got just about everybody on the call today to kind of assist and listen in and provide their own insights. So with that, I will hand it over to one of those lovely team members, Marissa Way.
I want to start off our session today as well by talking about what a campaign can look like during current times. And I'm sure that you have had employees ask or had meetings amongst yourselves how to have a successful and inspiring campaign during these uncertain and very tumultuous times. We hear you loud and clear. Mile High United Way and our team is definitely here as a resource, but also want to share some of the things that we have been hearing and learning over the last several months as well. One of those is that we constantly remind ourselves, never assume that you know where a donor or employee is at in their journey. So some individuals this year might not be able to donate as much as they have in past years. Some might not feel comfortable donating at all, and others will be inspired to maybe increase their gift this year. And there's really no way to know without asking and having that conversation. I hope as well that you'll use our team as a resource as well to help have those conversations as well. One thing I like to point out too is that we saw actually in our human services field during the recession in 2008 and the years following that actually giving increased in a lot of ways, which certainly surprised me, but I think it speaks also to the way that difficult times like this really inspire people to connect with their community and get more involved than ever in a lot of cases. So you'll see in 08 and 09, giving in human services in particular actually went up, while total giving across the US did decrease during that time. And in the years immediately following, giving in human services was far and above total giving in the US for other causes. So I think that also shows that people really also want to be able to help support where the need is greatest as well. So we have seen in recent months a lot of folks asking how they can help and get involved, particularly around basic needs, helping families like Baylin's, as well as in the healthcare space, more related to COVID and COVID response, and also in recent months have a more active role in the conversation around racial equity as well. A lot of folks want to help, but they don't know how. And we'd love for you to be able to use our team and the resources that we'll share with you later as a way to help people get involved in whatever way is most meaningful and inspiring to them. Additionally, I'd also like to highlight that giving and supporting your community looks very different for everyone, and it's really important for folks to get involved in whatever way is most meaningful to them. So you'll see at the bottom, not only are nonprofits going to have a struggle ahead of us trying to sort of sustain our work during these uncertain times, but also we've seen a huge decrease in volunteers due to the very real concern around exposure and social distancing as well. And organizations that rely on a lot of goods as well to be able to distribute the community have seen supply chain disruptions as well. So a lot of things to consider, definitely. But I think all in all, what's most important is to be able to offer people the opportunity to get involved without the pressure necessarily to get involved in one particular way. And please do use our team as a resource for getting involved as well. And I'll also just highlight some of the tips and tricks we use that are helpful in having those conversations, because I know, especially this year, it can be a little overwhelming to have those conversations with coworkers and employees as well. So I think, as I mentioned, it's really important to know your audience, not assume that anyone will or won't make a donation or want to get involved this year. Definitely share the need, which there is a lot of this year more than ever, but as most of you I know have partnered with Mile High United Way for many, many years now, the need definitely continues. And so I'm hoping that some of the resources we'll share during this session will help sort of demonstrate what that need looks like as well, and the impact of getting involved as well. I think that in addition to the facts and the impacts, it's always important to share the stories that make up our community, make up the struggle, and make up the impact and those changed lives as well, because that's really why we're doing what we're doing. And so I think keeping that human story at the forefront of this will be more important than ever this year. Last but not least, I think it's always great to be able to share your personal why for getting involved with the community. I always love hearing my coworkers and the folks that I work with, their personal reasons for getting involved and volunteering in their United Way campaigns. I think it's a great way to sort of hear why causes are important to folks, and also a great way to share nonprofits doing really meaningful work in the community. And last but not least, I think it's important to keep in mind that asking folks to get involved is not personal. No is certainly okay to hear, and is something that I'm sure all of us will or have heard, and that's fine too. But I think asking folks to join you in making a difference, in impacting the community, and helping in whatever way they can is ultimately the reason that we're all here for. So again, please use us as a resource for having these conversations. That is what we're here for, and we're more than happy to help.
Marissa. So as we're looking ahead to running a virtual campaign, we thought through all of the elements, and there's a lot that really will stay the same in terms of the essential pieces of what it means to have an employee giving campaign, to have that time to really bring people together, to have fun, to learn more about your community. And it's really more in the delivery, right, that we're going to see more differences. So we want to kind of have a quick quick refresher on maybe what that looks like and what about that will change. So I think as you're looking at your campaign for the fall, if you think through what are your goals for this year, how might that look different than in previous years? Is that rather than working towards one big dollar goal, maybe that's a goal around how you better connect employees to one another. I know that we're seeing more and more just that kind of craving that connection to people in real and authentic ways, and especially to your team members who you're used to seeing in person every day and having those nice kind of casual chats with. So what do those goals look like, and then how can we use the structure of a campaign to really help meet some of that? I think, always is great to have some help as you're planning your campaign. I know we have some groups of folks on the call today. We saw good clusters of people from Nationwide and Excel and Burns & McDonnell and US Bank, and I'm sure others that I'm missing as I'm saying that. But I think that's great, and really want to continue to encourage that, especially as we're thinking about, bringing together a cross-functional team will really help you better be able to disseminate information about your campaign. It'll help meet the different styles of the teams and groups that you're trying to engage. And especially, looking at staff that may be essential workers versus staff who are working from home or working virtually, and really how those needs and what their current work environment looks like may be different. So ensuring that you're really bringing together those different perspectives. And I think, as in previous years, always having a cause or a theme to rally around helps kind of invite that common shared interest, and also really centers and grounds the work that you're doing. There's obviously, great places to start in terms of current events. If you think that, a focus area for COVID relief or social justice may fit with your company's goals and your employees' interests, that could be a starting point for what you're thinking about as you're crafting your campaign plans. But also, we know that there are considerable needs growing in the community as a result of the COVID outbreak. And so there are needs that have been existing in the community, but maybe even more pressing and more relevant now than ever, things like housing or food security. And so if that is something that fits with your company and with your employees, then that might be a good starting point too. The fourth thing we would consider, or we would encourage you to consider, would be to not reinvent the wheel. So what's worked really well for your team in the past? Is it that you've had, a ton of special events and those have been what everyone loves to do? Has it been the volunteerism and the match on volunteer hours that inspires people to get involved? And really thinking about what are those key pieces that people think of when they think of your campaign and that they love, and how can we brainstorm some virtual alternatives to that, or virtual versions, right? And we'll get into some of the ideas that our team has already, and then we'll love to hear from all of you. And then I think, as always, and this has been in the case in the past and will continue to be, but the messaging of how you share this with employees will be key. And I think, we're all adapting to new platforms and styles, but thinking about what has worked well for your team so far. How are you seeing, use of different platforms working really well for your employees? Where are people naturally sort of congregating virtually? Is it Slack channels? Is it Microsoft Teams? Are you just on Zoom calls? So really thinking through what things have maybe been adopted more often and been adopted best by your employees, and carrying those over into your campaign setting. So with that, I should stop and say, if you have any questions throughout any of this or comments, we'd love to have you drop them in the chat. Also, feel free to save them for your discussion groups, and we can run through them at that time, but just wanted to make sure that I said that. So some of the resources that we have that we've already thought through. And again, I say this knowing that we haven't thought about everything, but we do have some great resources pulled together already from the great work our volunteer engagement team has done. For example, they're working on transferring any of our volunteer engagement to be either virtual, done virtually in groups, or remotely on your own, or in a socially distanced and safe manner. Our employee giving functionalities are all set up to be virtual friendly. And I know we work with many of you on the platform perspective of that, and others may have a different solution, but we're happy to support in that regard as well. And then around the events, we do still have our signature volunteer and community events happening in that kind of hybrid of virtual and socially distanced. But then we also have some ideas around what campaign special events might look like. And then finally, we have uploaded a lot of these ideas and content onto our website. So please consider that as a resource for you and your team as you're moving into campaign season, and we'll continue to keep that updated with resources and materials throughout the fall. So with that, I'm going to let Caitlin from our volunteer engagement team share a little bit more with us about what volunteerism can look like and how we can support your company.
Thanks, Haley. Hi, everyone. Excited to be joining you guys as you are thinking through how you're planning this year, and just really appreciative to the corporate team and to all of our partners for still understanding and being excited about volunteerism this upcoming fall, while everything looks a lot different kind of in our world and in the community. We know that the need is still really high right now, and will most likely just continue to become more high or more need in the community as time goes on, especially this fall. And so thank you guys for letting me be a part of this. My name is Caitlin Hinkle, and I am part of our volunteer team here at Mile High United Way. And I'm just going to kind of talk through what a new day of service, or the new day of service, looks like, and what these virtual and remote volunteerism options are. And then also just keeping in mind while I'm talking through this that in-person volunteers are still needed, and a lot of our nonprofit partners are still accepting in-person volunteers, either just in smaller groups or with limited availability. But if that's something that your company is still interested in, or you've heard team members kind of talking about, that is still an option as well. And then I also want to, before I dive into these a little bit more, say that we are still really flexible into helping you coordinate and execute your volunteerism and however you want that to look. So I know in the past, a lot of companies have done one day of service for all of their employees, or maybe a week of service, or maybe just different types of opportunities. And so I just want to say that all of those are still available as well. If you're looking to do something over the course of a week, over a couple weeks, if you want to just do one day of service, we are totally flexible and can kind of help you think through what that may look like and how you may organize it, get people signed up, and understanding kind of everything that goes into these new virtual and remote volunteer offerings. And so what you'll see on the screen is really just a different take on what we have normally done in the past. So still having days of service available, but how can we make those virtual, and how can we make those remote? One thing that we talk about at Mile High United Way to help us kind of understand the difference is a virtual day of service is something that is done completely online over the computer, but it has a specific time and date to it. So in the virtual day of service group, those are things that volunteers can sign up for a time, a date, usually keeping them to an hour or under, and then everyone who's volunteering and participating would join a call at the same time, be on the call together, and then they would end the call volunteering and with a call to action. And then a remote day of service, which I'm kind of jumping around, but remote day of service is at the bottom. Remote just means that it is something that volunteers and people can do on their own time, away, kind of where they're at, if they're at home, in their office, but it's something that can be done over the course of maybe a couple weeks. So these are things like submitting a video, making a mask, submitting a recipe, and so those are things that you could ask volunteers to do. We could help you think of kind of like a time frame, and then those have some more flexibility in when the volunteers want to make their mask or want to make their video. A lot of our remote day of service options are family friendly as well. So those are great opportunities to get the kids involved at home, and really just talk to them and have that discussion about why volunteering is so important and how you are still giving back to the community even during this time, when we may not be able to volunteer in person. And then I'll also highlight skills-based volunteering. Skill-based volunteering is an area that is growing, especially for us. And if you are passionate about one of our programs, so Bridging the Gap, United for Business, 211, we do have skill-based volunteer opportunities. These ones are a little bit more involved and require more of a time commitment, but we do make sure volunteers are trained. We have volunteers fill out an application. So if you're looking for more of a way to educate your employees, helping them really understand the need in the community and how they can use their skills to volunteer, I would definitely encourage you to look more into skill-based volunteering. And then our social distance day of service, these are opportunities that incorporate things like kit builds or volunteering at a nonprofit, kind of watching as time goes on and listening to what the guidelines are, making sure that we're following those, but recognizing that if people want to volunteer in person, that it is still possible, and we're happy to kind of work through that with you guys and also provide you our safety guidelines and best practices that we've come up with as far as hosting volunteers in our building. We're happy to share any of that information if that would be helpful. And then signature events and drives. Signature and events and drives are a large part of our volunteerism, especially in the fall. And these will be continuing. So we actually have our back to school bash coming up this weekend, where we've been running drives for school supplies. So if you have already been on board with that and been collecting backpacks and school supplies, thank you so much. We'll continue with all of our signature event and drive options this fall, and just wanting to make sure that you guys know that for these there will be a virtual component, a remote component, and then also an in-person opportunity with our signature events. So if those are something you're really passionate about and your employees love, those are not going anywhere. So no worries on our signature events. And if you guys have any questions, we are happy to help you all think through your volunteerism this fall. I can talk a little bit about the signature events real fast too. We kind of went over this a little bit, but this just gives you guys a timeline of when we have our events coming up. So we'll have our back to school bash this weekend. Day of Caring, which is really focused on our Boulder and Broomfield nonprofit partners. That will be at the end of August. And again, that has in-person opportunities for small groups with social distancing, as well as remote and virtual opportunities. And then we have our Denver Day of Service, which will be on September 25th this year. And that will be focused really around nonprofits in Metro Denver. Again, virtual, remote, and in-person opportunities for small groups. We'll have Career Week coming up, the Turkey Trot, and then our Children's Holiday Party. Of course, starting to collect those toys around October and November, and starting to think about that for Children's Holiday Party in December.
All right. So my name is McKenna Kincaid. I am a coordinator here with our corporate team. I know some of you on the call, so it's good to see you all. I just wanted to give you an update on sort of like Haley was saying at the beginning, a lot of times during campaigns, there was those special events that really brought the teams together, had everybody talking and excited to get involved. And so we do have on our website now an employee giving guide. We updated it with a lot of virtual event ideas, social distancing event ideas, and just different ways that you can educate your teams on what's going on. I think there are a lot of fun examples in there. A lot of people liked the Office Olympics theme, for instance. And now you can do a home Olympics or something of that nature just to get people excited and still involved in the process. And then you can also just do educational activities and more fundraising events as well. So absolutely, if you have any questions, please reach out to our team. We're happy to help you sort of bring together all these different ideas, whether it's volunteering events, if it's coordinating that with a fun social distancing event. We're happy to be your sounding board and just help implement those ideas or help speak and educate during those events as well.
Thanks, McKenna. So we're going to break you out into discussion groups, into small groups here. So you should have a Mile High United Way staff member or two in your group to help kind of keep that conversation moving. And we did try to split up some of the companies a little bit so that you're hearing ideas from different folks, from different companies and different perspectives. And then we'll bring you all back together a little before 1 in order to kind of share out our findings, any of the big themes, and then we'll have a couple of additional resources that we found to share with you at that time. So you'll see a little pop-up that says you're being moved over to a discussion group. Feel free to click OK on that. Otherwise, within, I think, 30 seconds, you'll just get moved. So if you have any trouble or if you find yourself not in a group or something happens, feel free to just send a chat over to Grace. Otherwise, we will chat with you in groups in just a moment.
All right, I think everyone's back. Hi, I'm Grace. I am a manager of corporate relations with the rest of the team. So I just wanted to welcome you guys back from your breakout rooms. I hope you had a lot of inspiring conversations and are feeling really prepared to tackle campaign season. I'd just like to take a moment and have our moderators share big themes or any ideas that came out of their sessions. And if you were a participant, please feel free to share any takeaways or things that you were really excited about in the chat. Haley, do you want to start by just sharing something really quickly?
Sure. So we talked about a few things. One thing that came up was a great idea from Liz at Excel and Kayla at Molson Coors around kind of creating different ways to engage, and especially for folks who have maybe multiple locations or multiple markets, kind of giving that framework to those different locations and letting them customize that on the ground. So they were looking at a learn, connect, volunteer, give type of a framework, and having events or opportunities within each framework. We also talked about kind of that combination of something personal and in-person that personalized element to a virtual event. So the idea of, for example, a virtual event, but everyone got mailed a breakfast in the box that morning. And so it turned into really great, you know, attendance conversion for the event, because everyone had that breakfast and then felt really compelled to get on that call that day. So some good ideas there, and then also some ideas around online games, but I'll let the next person talk.
Thanks, Haley. Marissa or McKenna?
Yeah, I'll go ahead and jump in. I had a great group from John Mansville, Burns and Mac nationwide, and some other United Ways across the country. So super great group to chat with. We were discussing a bit some of those events that we've had in years past and how to translate them virtually this year. And had a great suggestion for a virtual golf tournament, which sounds super fun. And I hope that my virtual game is better than my real life game. But through this really cool website called WGT.com, and how that would be just a great way for employees to connect and have fun together, like in years past.
Great, thanks.
Yeah, and so we had folks from Excel, Nationwide, and a few others. And one of the common themes that we came up with was just kind of talking through the challenges that we all might face when trying to run a campaign virtually, and the engagement options, and maybe that's you know, sending out emails and how are folks getting that information. And so we talked about, you know, possibly, like you were saying, those mail out options, or just different ways to make sure that everybody gets the same message. And then we also hit on campaign themes and how those can help drive goals. And so I think it was just really encouraging to hear those, and you know, let us know if you have any questions.
Great, thanks guys. And I know we're running up against time, so I will make this very quick, but we wanted to just clue you in on a couple of things that we have coming up. We have some really great opportunities as we enter campaign season. As Caitlin mentioned earlier, we do have the back to school bash this weekend if you are comfortable volunteering in person, but we also have things like our corporate partnership summit in August. We have a virtual nonprofit fair, our day of caring, our Denver Day of Service will be in September. And very exciting, we have our Women United luncheon with Gail King as our keynote speaker, and that will be in October. And we will send out this entire deck, so don't worry about where am I going to get this information. These are all hyperlinked, and we'll send everything to you if you're interested in learning more and joining us for some of these things. There we go. And then we just put together a few additional resources. We just think that some of these might be helpful if you're thinking about how do we do virtual engagement better, and some really fun online tools and games to really bring people together during the campaign as we pivot to virtual opportunities. So again, this will all be sent out, but we hope to see you at some of our upcoming events. And with that, I will turn it back over to Haley.
Thank you. So, and that's really all I have left to say. Just wanted to thank you all for being such great partners, for joining us today, and for all the ways that you continue to engage your teams during such a critical time for our community. You know, it's in some ways harder than ever to connect, and in other ways ridiculously easy, but really takes a lot of creativity to make this meaningful for your teams. And we appreciate everything you're doing, and we look forward to continuing to work together this fall. So please feel free to reach out with any questions, and we will send all of these slides and information to you all as a follow-up. And we look forward to chatting more this fall. Thanks.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks all. Have a great day.